ceremony. You know, Lord, we AFA types like our planes and aero stuff, old and new. We've got buffs twice as old as the pilots who fly them. We've got a new Pegasus that refuels, a new Lightning that fights, and RPAs that provide ISR around the world. We've even got artificial intelligence and multi-domain operations that make the green eye shade guys on the third floor impressed. Please use these instruments of peace to keep us safe and free. Even more than the planes and the programs, oh God, we love our people. The aviators and missileers, the crew dogs and crew chiefs, cops and cooks, loggies and lawyers, cyber techs and cyber warriors, docs and preachers, and countless women and men who patrol the mountains of Afghanistan and serve in the highest echelons of leadership inside and outside the Beltway. Thank you, Lord, for our airmen and for their families who keep the watch and pray us safely home. With all these planes, people, and power, Lord, keep us on our knees, seeking your wisdom and guidance in this dangerous world. Use this conference for your glory and the benefit of all mankind. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Baldwin. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the 19th Secretary of the United States Air Force and the Air Force Association's Chairman of the Board, the Honorable F. Whitten Peters.
Well, it is great to be here on Monday morning at the Gaylord. I guess I should start by saying, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. That was pretty hearty. Let's try it one more time and see if we can really wake up. Good morning. Good morning. It's good. 72nd birthday of the United States Air Force. 73rd birthday for me. So I get back for even. Yeah. It always used to bother me that when I was on a B-52, I was the only person on board older than the airplane. Good morning. On behalf of the Air Force Association, welcome to AFA's Airspace and Cyber Conference. Each year, this conference grows, and we are happy that you have chosen to attend. If this is your first time at the conference, I extend to you a very warm welcome on behalf of AFA. If you're a returning conference attendee, we hope the conference is even better than it was last year. We promise an opportunity to learn, to network, to discover new opportunities, and to explore the latest developments in aerospace technology. At the outset, let me express my profound thanks to our Acting Secretary, Matt Donovan, and to our Chief of Staff, David Goldfein. They have been tremendously supportive of this conference, and their assistance has made it the success I think it's going to be. This is really now the premier annual professional development event for airmen. AFA is your professional association, and just as we've been doing since 1946, 1 year before the Air Force was born, we have the great privilege of working for our Air Force and for you before the United States Congress, in our local communities, through our extensive field network, and with national media. We want all of you to be part of this association. If you're not an AFA member, we strongly encourage you to join while you're here with us this week. Let me present now a short video illustrating what we do.
We are your Air Force Association. We are here for you during and beyond your time in uniform. We share your stories. We help you transition into new life stages. We keep you connected. We inspire future generations of airmen to come. Our mission is no small task: to promote a dominant United States Air Force, a strong national defense, and to honor airmen and our Air Force heritage. Together, we do this through a commitment to education, advocacy, and support for the men and women of the United States Air Force and their families. We inspire students and teachers to pursue careers in air, space, and cyber disciplines. Because, like you, we know the value of empowering the next generation with the skills that are critical to our nation's future. We advocate for unmatched aerospace power and world-class STEM education with unparalleled research and information from Capitol Hill to your communities. We champion the total Air Force family through leadership development, grants, scholarships, and career and wellness services. Every program we create and promote advances our vision to be the premier professional military and aerospace education association in the nation. Together, we are Airmen for Life. Together, we are your Air Force Association.
On behalf of all the members of our Air Force Association, it remains an honor to support our airmen and their families in their selfless service to defend our nation. Please join me and join them and join the fight.
So we're kind of like National Public Radio. We only have one commercial at the beginning, but let me continue with that at the moment. As the video describes, we hope you will consider joining the fight by becoming a member of AFA. Memberships are available starting at just $20 a year in the AFA booth just outside this ballroom, or you can find one of our AFA ambassadors roaming around throughout the week. Please take advantage of that opportunity. Once you join, you can participate in many fine programs, events, and service opportunities. You and we will be richer for your involvement and participation. Please also make sure to visit AFA's hangar store located just outside the ballroom. AFA merchandise is available there, and you can assist us with our worthy programs by participating in our silent auction. Now to some issues you have told us are important to you. After 1991's Operation Desert Storm, the military services have been downsized. Capabilities have languished, and equipment has grown antiquated and incapable of some of the assigned missions. The Air Force in particular downsized by a third and has become a force that is too small for what our nation requires of it. The Air Force is the only service that deployed to the Gulf in 1990 and has not yet come home, representing nearly 29 straight years of continuous combat operations. The Air Force needs stable and predictable funding at sufficient levels. The National Security Strategy agrees, stating, quote, "This commission recommends that Congress increase the base defense budget at an average rate of 3 to 5% above inflation through the future years defense program and perhaps beyond." The last two defense budgets have provided the Air Force with a down payment on the necessary resources to arrest its decreasing readiness, and the last budget helped the Air Force begin its long modernization journey. But we are still a long way from the 386 modern, well-equipped squadrons that the Air Force needs to meet the National Defense Strategy. In the space domain, AFA welcomes General Jay Raymond and both of his hats as the new head of Space Command. As high-level dialogue continues on the future of space development, deployment, operations, and sustainment, what's important, and indeed essential, is that the U.S. be equipped to address the rising threats posed by our adversaries to commercial and military space assets. We can accept nothing less than dominant capabilities in space to deter and, if necessary, neutralize or defeat threats in space to assure continued access to the high ground. This is a national imperative. In the cyber domain, the Air Force merger of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance with cyber operations makes perfect sense, and I hope will strengthen that capability, all those capabilities. AFA regards this as an important step towards strengthening the Air Force's ability to more effectively fuse cyber and kinetic capabilities. We strongly support efforts to rapidly implement combat-ready, multi-domain command and control, and along in the same vein, AFA looks forward to the 24th and 25th Air Forces merger, forming a new information warfare numbered Air Force that will provide options to integrate cyber, ISR, electronic warfare, and information operation capabilities. The Air Force strongly believes that the Air Force Association strongly believes that the heart and soul of the force lies in airmen and their families, so many of whom are here today. We tirelessly advocate to increase pay and benefits to retain the Air Force's valuable members. We protect health care because we see it as a readiness issue, as well as a benefit long earned. We are working for better housing, continued shopping benefits, and enhancing and protecting education benefits. We have fought to end the widow's tax, and we have also been promoting civilian pay increases because the Air Force's civilians are key members of the total force, and our nation needs to retain them, and Congress is listening, we think. As we begin this conference, please take advantage of all we have to offer. Let us know how we're doing. Please complete the conference survey and get back to us to tell us what's good and what's bad. Our goal is the same as it always has been, to make this the premier and keep this the premier Air Force professional development conference. Now, without further delay, we are ready to welcome our keynote speaker. Please roll the video.
I'm a person that looks forward more than looks back. When I started 50 years ago as an entrepreneur, the word entrepreneur I don't think existed.
The airline's the brainchild of Richard Branson, the 34-year-old millionaire head of the Virgin Records empire.
I think an entrepreneur is somebody that creates something that makes a positive difference to other people's lives. I'm a born optimist, a very positive person. Both my children have inherited that from me. And I was very lucky, I had a very happy childhood. One of the things I enjoy the most is teaching people to swim.
You shouldn't think, Archbishop. You just go.
I find it quite an easy thing to do, and it's wonderfully satisfying to help them stand on their own 2 feet.
That was brilliant.
Why do you have so much money?
The exciting thing about learning to be an entrepreneur is then later on in life, you can be creating not-for-profit businesses, not-for-profit things to try to deal with the problems of the world. I've been lucky enough to help create the Elders, which is a wonderful group of people that are trying to tackle conflict resolution issues in the world.
The elders can become a fiercely independent and robust force for good.
The oceanic elders to try to tackle the problems of the oceans. The carbon war room to try to tackle climate change. My attitude in life is to give everything I can to solve the problem. Trying to go to space has been tough, very tough. The old saying, it's not rocket science. Well, obviously, if you're trying to go to space, it is rocket science. I get enormous satisfaction trying to achieve something that has never been achieved before. My favorite phrase to all the people around me is, screw it, just get on and do it.
We don't have virgin water. I don't know why we don't this morning, but
Actually, that's a good idea. We'll get that sorted for next
so
time.
Richard, thank you for coming. We really appreciate your willingness to fly all the way across the ocean to join us this morning. And this is an airspace and cyber conference. I think that means that a lot of people would like to know about space. And I noticed in your bio that you have been working space for a very long time. Tell us about how you got involved.
Well, first of all, it's a great honor to be here, and thank you for the invite. The first time space really captivated me was when I was about 17 years old and watched the moon landing. I think maybe the two of us were old enough to remember it, and it was on a little black and white TV set, and I thought, I'll be going to space one day. This is something really to look forward to. Anyway, decade by decade went along, and I then got a call from President Gorbachev, who was trying to reach out to the rest of the world from Russia, inviting me to go to space on one of his spaceships. And of course, I immediately said yes. But then his minions made it clear it was a $50 million check. So I decided to drop dropped that idea. And then I started heading around the world to see if we could find some genius engineers to build spaceships to enable myself, and I believe most people would love the chance to go to space if they could afford it. And I came across somebody called Bert Rutan, who is one of those aviation engineering geniuses, and we got involved with Spaceship One with him and Paul Allen, and now we've had an incredible year. We've had 5 people into space this year, five new astronauts created, which is the first new astronauts created since 2009, it's been very exciting. We might just show a quick video of where we are with Virgin Galactic, if that's all right.
That'd be great. Thank you.
The exploration of space will go ahead, and it is one of the great adventures of all time.
Spaceship Unity, welcome to space.
Copy base, $1 billion view.
Humans have managed to learn so much about the universe in such a relatively small time frame compared with the life of the universe. That was always very incredible to me.
Armed. Fire.
Our mission is to lower the barrier to getting into orbit so that businesses and entrepreneurs, universities and countries can bring capabilities into space that help us here on Earth.
As a species, we've traveled around our planet at the same speed for the last 50 to 60 years. Spaceship 2 is going to be the first space plane that on a regular basis flies humans faster than 3 times the speed of sound.
By bringing hundreds and eventually thousands of people into space, they'll get a different perspective on life and on our future. That will have a profound impact on how humanity faces its toughest problems.
Together, we can make space accessible in a way that has only been dreamt of before now. And by doing that, we can truly bring positive change to life on Earth.
Have you ever thought about going into space, Richard?
I'd love to go into space. I think there could be nothing nicer. So if you're building a spacecraft, I'd love to come with you on it.
So are you planning to fly yourself soon?
I absolutely would. I'm planning to fly myself, yes. And it won't be long now. We're just moving the whole operation to New Mexico, where they built a beautiful spaceport there, and we'll do a few more final test flights, and then I'll go up, and then we've got about 700 people who've signed up to go up with us. We'll start putting them up. How many people in the audience would like to go to space one day? Yeah, I wasn't surprised in this particular audience.
Bring your credit card.
Yeah, no, I mean, our challenge is to get the price down to a level that people, can save up to do it, or maybe fly lots of times from Virgin Atlantic and get the frequent flyer program to do it. And the more spaceships we build, the more we're built to bring the price down. And interestingly, when people crossed the Atlantic in the 1920s, the price was about the same as it is to put somebody into space today on Virgin Galactic. But decade by decade, the price came down. So now, a lot of people can afford to fly across the Atlantic and want to do the same if possible.
So, one of the things that I find interesting is that you actually started Virgin Galactic, I think, in around 2003 or 4, and now it's 2019. What have been the struggles to get from where you were to where you are today?
Well, as I mentioned in that introduction film, space is difficult, and much more difficult than I thought when I started in 2003. I didn't expect to be sitting here today saying, we're about to go to space. I thought we would have gone a few years ago. So first of all, building rockets that are 100% safe, that you can just use time and time again and know that you're not going to have an incident. Obviously, building a mothership to take the spaceship up. So we built the largest carbon composite plane ever built, our mothership Eve, to carry this spaceship up to 40,000 feet before we released it. The spaceship itself, it's got to withstand 3,500 miles per hour in less than 8 seconds. and so again, it's got to be strong and capable of going 60 or 70 miles into space. And then you have brave test pilots who have to try to find out what could go wrong in space that you can't really test on the ground. And in the process, we actually lost one pilot who made a tiny error, but we've now made sure that spaceship can't make that tiny error. And of course, that sets things back enormously. We're now at an exciting time.
So when do you take off in your Spaceship Two? How long do you actually get to be in space?
So the whole round trip is about 3 hours. If one day we'll extend it into putting people into orbit, but the price then goes up dramatically. So what we think is that people want to become astronauts. They want to be able to look back at the Earth in massive big windows. They want to be able to flit around. They want to go into space, and the experience, the extra cost of putting somebody into orbit, we think is most likely won't be economical. So I think we've got the right balance, and maybe one day, sir, with your knee that you've just pulled, we could get you to float around. You won't have to worry about the knee.
It might be a lot easier. So a number of people talked about sending people from New York to Paris through space. Is that economically feasible? Have you looked at that?
I think it is. And once we've finished this program, we're going to be working hard on that as an option. And there are one or two other companies, in fact, I think there's one in the room today, who are seriously looking at, at least sort of 5 times the speed of sound. Obviously, if you actually go into orbit, you're talking about traveling at 18,500 miles an hour, and you can get anywhere in the world in an hour. And the only problem is going to be the airport, getting through the airport on both ends. Unless you parachute out.
Right. Have you experienced our TSA yet?
I think we've all experienced that.
So before we continue, let me mention we have microphones in the aisles. Sir Richard has said he'd be happy to take questions. We want to talk for a bit longer, but if you'd like to ask a question, if you want to queue up behind the microphones, I'm trying to be British today, queue up, and we'd be happy to take some questions. So if you have them, why don't you start doing that, and we'll chat a little bit more about satellites. We've talked a bit about people. one of the things that worries the Defense Department a lot is the Chinese ability and the Russian ability to shoot satellites out of the orbit or to disable them in various ways. And one of the responses is responsive launch, which you are working with Virgin Orbit. Let's talk a bit about Virgin Orbit. How did you get into that, and where do you see that going?
So our thinking behind Virgin Orbit was that at present, if you want to put a satellite into space and you're in America, there are two places you can launch from. And generally speaking, it takes about 6 months to 8 months to get a slot. And obviously, having only 2 places is quite vulnerable to attack as well. So our thinking with Virgin Orbit was, first of all, let's use Virgin Orbit to put a big array of satellites around the world to connect the 4 billion people who are not connected. And with low Earth orbit satellites, they fall out of the sky every 4 or 5 years. So the fact that we can take off and launch a new satellite within 24 hours of a satellite falling out means that need be almost no disruption to a network. The second thing is, from a military point of view, is that, I mean, were there to be a conflict in the Middle East and somebody knocked out all the satellites in that area, by having a 747, which we use, it's actually called Cosmic Girl, and it was Cosmic Girl when it flew for Virgin Atlantic once, and so quite appropriate. We took it out of Virgin Atlantic and put it into Virgin Orbit. But by having a 747 that can just take off at 4 or 5 hours notice, have a rocket attached under the wing, drop it and put a new satellite into space. Hopefully, it'll be a deterrent to an enemy state to knock out satellites in the first place. If they know that America or Great Britain has the capability of replacing satellites within 24 hours, hopefully you won't get the sort of cyber war in space that we all fear. And obviously, space is critical to communications, so we've been working for many years developing the Virgin Orbit. We had our first drop test of a rocket a couple of months ago, which I'll show you in a second. And in about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, we'll be firing the engines on the next drop test, and heading at 18,500 miles an hour around the Earth in orbit, beginning to drop off satellites. So for both Virgin Galactic and Virgin Orbit, it's an exciting time. But I'll just give people a quick look at Virgin Orbit.
Cosmic Girl 01 orbit base. We have lock on Long Beach and Mojave.
Orbit base, TD, we are turning on the cold path, leveling off at flight level 300. Are you ready to come in to terminal count?
Yes, MCC is go for terminal count.
LE1, are you go for terminal count? Okay, we are go for terminal count. LE2, please proceed through terminal count. Orbit base LE1, rocket is now on internal power. Yeah, Orbit base LE1, we just switched into drop ready mode. Currently estimating 16-15 flat for drop time.
And for all operators, Cosmic Girl is on the northern leg of its hot pass. Approximately 40 seconds. All operators, Cosmic Girl is making its final turn into the southern drop low.
Only in 3, 2, 1, now. Release, release, release. Clean release, clean release.
Control and be advised, we have released. Control room, this is LD. We do have a report of a clean release.
So, thank you very much. Yeah, so the good thing is that 747s, believe it or not, do not cost very much these days.
It's like a B-52. I think it's more than
I've rung out Boeing twice in my life, and 35 years ago, I'd just been bumped off a plane going to the Virgin Islands, and they said the plane wasn't full enough, and therefore they wouldn't take me there. And I'd been away from my girlfriend for 3 weeks. I was 27 years old, and I was absolutely determined to get there. So I hired a plane. Got a blackboard, and as a joke, I wrote Virgin Airlines one way, $39 to the British Virgin Islands, and went around all the passengers who got bumped, and I sold out my first plane. And the next day, I rang up Boeing and I tried to put on a deep sounding voice and said, "Do you have any secondhand 747s for sale?" And the person said, "Well, what do you do?" I said, well, I run a record company. I've got the Rolling Stones, I've got the Sex Pistols. There was a long pause, and I thought he was going to put the phone down on me. And he said, "Look, I'll tell you what, I'll send a salesman along to see you, as long as you make one promise." And I said, "Well, what is that?" He said, that under no circumstances can you call the airline Virgin. He said, "Everyone will assume it's not going to go the whole way." So anyway, 35 years ago, we did start with one plane from them. And then Virgin Orbit has started with one plane 35 years later. And what I think from working, we've had meetings with the US Air Force, with the British Air Force, with the Canadian Air Force, with European Air Forces. And I think together, if there were, one day to maybe have 8 different planes or something like that parked around the world with a number of rockets, a number of satellites. And I think as long as if that's done, I think the chances of us getting satellites not knocked out by an enemy power is very unlikely, because we'll be able to get ours back up far quicker than they'll be able to get theirs back up.
So one of the things, as I mentioned in the green room, I was one of the 2 guys who signed the contract for EELV, a big launch program, the Air Force, thinking that commercial lift would pay for a lot of this. And then it disappeared and disappeared some more and never happened. And in part, you're dependent on commercial launch, I assume. So what is your sense of where are we really with the commercial market for small sats and launch?
Oh, I think the world desperately needs big arrays of small satellites to connect the sort of 4.5 billion people who are not connected on the internet, for instance, because if you're not connected on the internet, it's very difficult for you to compete with somebody who is connected on the internet, whether it's health or education or or numerous other things. Larry Page, I know quite well, who runs Google, who started Google, and I heard a kid ask him, "So what do you do, Mr. Page?" And Larry responded, "I help people find things." And Google has done that extremely well. I've lost my track. Anyway.
Okay. Why don't we go to a question? I see some people standing down there. Why don't you ask a question?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Sir Richard. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Winston Campbell, and I'm involved with a space camp in New Mexico, actually. We bring kids out to Spaceport America. We've done it for the last 6 years and really had a blast. And one of the things we talk to the kids about as we go to various sites is we tell them these are careers that you can have. You just got to work for it. You got to set your goals. You have to go after it. As Virgin Galactic, Virgin Orbit, you span your operations, you're going to need more talent, obviously, engineering, fabrication, but also more pilots. So my question to you is, what are your long-term plans to establish a pipeline and maintain a pipeline of pilots onboarding for your operations that we can turn to our kids and say, look, this is kind of your path that you need to follow if you want to kind of get into that business?
Are you pitching?
Doing it for the kids, sir.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think we'll have any shortage of people who would love to be pilots and astronauts with Virgin Galactic. But we are training a number to be able to cope with the first three spaceships that we've got. And hopefully the demand will be such that we will be seeking more and more pilots. And I would hate to your bosses to think I would be poaching from this room, but you're the best in the world. So I think it's much more likely that maybe they'll lend us one or two in the years to come.
About that?
But it's great. Maybe hopefully see you in New Mexico sometime. It's a beautiful spaceport, and it's great to see kids, getting excited by this.
Let's go to the other side of the room. It's you.
Hi, that's me. All right. Big fan of yours, Sir Richard Branson. My wife is too, but I think it's for a different reason. So I follow you online and all of your tweets and your shares on LinkedIn about inclusion and the importance of people. And I wanted to know your vision because the Air Force has realized that people is what runs the service. So what do you do with Virgin to help inclusion and diversify your workforce?
It's a very important question. And I'll go right back to when I was 7 or 8 years old. And if I said ill about somebody, my parents would send me to the mirror and make me look into the mirror and just say, you've got to stand there for 10 minutes, how badly it reflects on you. And I think that kind of upbringing taught me to always look for the best in people. And if you look for the best in people, you get the best back. So we've looked for leaders at Virgin that are great at praising people, great at looking for the best in people, and that's worked for Virgin. It's a slightly overused phrase by companies that to run a company like a family, but that's what we try to do at Virgin. And from what I've heard, the people who are running the U.S. Air Force are much more inclusive in that way, and they seem to, and hopefully that is ricocheting down through the ranks, because I think if you have a happy, well-motivated group of people really proud of what they're doing, they can achieve anything, and it's very, very exciting. At Virgin, if we launch a new company, we're just going into the cruise business with something called Virgin Voyages, and we can draw on all the different parts of Virgin around the world, the best people, and create something unique and special. And I think in the Air Force, it's important that you don't just get locked into silos. If there's an exciting new project, that people are pulled from many different parts of the Air Force. I'd love to get your opinion, but I would hate to get you into trouble. Thank you.
We'll go back to the other side.
Good morning, Sir Richard. My name is Sydney Klucher, and I'm a JROTC cadet from Pensacola High School, and I hope to be an astronaut one day. So my question for you is, what qualities are you looking for that are most important to you in your astronauts and pilots?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily the best person to look at the qualities of what's needed to be an astronaut. I've flown balloons around the world, crashed in oceans. I think I've got the world record for the most times pulled out of the sea by helicopters. So I don't think the team would trust me in making astronaut choices. But I know that they'll be looking for people who've had an exemplary career in the Air Force. There'll be, I think, character reference is going to be critical. And one day, you should, if I'm allowed to say it, you should apply, go along and meet our team. Anyway, thank you.
Let's go back to the other side.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much, first off, for taking the questions from the audience in the first place. My name is Jennifer, and I'm a reporter, editor with Air Force Magazine. And my question is, by virtue of your experience with Virgin Group, making you somewhat of an artist at the idea of anticipating future challenges and future needs and spinning off institutions, making them appear essentially out of the ether to meet those head on, what advice would you give to the military as it approaches the potential creation of a U.S. Space Force?
I think that what you're doing already I was just talking to some of your generals, as you did, before coming on. And, I think I think your sessions where you get people in a room and some pretend to be the enemy, some are representing the American Air Force. And you're just brainstorming, trying to come up with all the potential eventualities that you need to address. And out of those sessions, hopefully somebody will be writing down a list of things that they can learn from those sessions. The key is, will people at the top act on them? And at Virgin, if I'm on a Virgin Atlantic airplane, I'll always have a notebook in my pocket, never to be too proud to pull it out and write down feedback from passengers or from staff. So I think a good leader just has to be listening all the time, writing things down and then acting on them. And I think in that way, your company or your Air Force can just get better and better and better. Thank you.
Let me take a couple more. Let's go back to the other side if we could.
Sir, my name is Anthony Urbick, and I work for the Ground-Based Strategic Deterrent Program. My question is, we do have a number of companies in private industry that are pursuing space projects, and we do have funding on the government side. And I'm wondering if you see a balance there that makes the most sense compared to where we are now and where we've been in the past.
So the question is about how much government he ought to fly?
Yes, sir. What is the correct balance between government funding and industry projects? Do you see a balance, or is it continually evolving?
So I think private industry can generally, I think, do things more cost effectively than government-run businesses. But private industry, there are some things that private industry do that they very much need to work with government on. So with Virgin Orbit putting planes around the world and putting satellites and putting rockets there, would not make sense for us as a private company, but working with government and maybe the US Air Force, we can both bring our individual skills to it, and it makes sense. So I think that there's a good working balance between the two. NASA have effectively become an organization that farms out a lot of its work to private enterprise. because they know that the private enterprise are likely to do it more cost effectively than they can. But they still keep a watchful eye on it, and some of the really big projects, they still get involved with. By the way, one really exciting thing, who's seen this wonderful new satellite that looks just like Earth that's been discovered in the last 2 weeks? And it's got water on it. It's just beautiful. But anybody seen it? I've seen pictures of it. One or two people. Okay. You should check it out on the internet. I mean, it's like this beautiful Earth. It's just outside our solar system. And a probe has gone, I mean, not that close, but NASA are going to send another probe to go really close to see if there's any life on it. But if there's water, it's quite possible that there is life on it. And these are the sort of things that, very small probes can discover in the future.
Let me follow up. Are you seeing other governments interested in rapid launch as well, or is this really just a United States issue at this point?
No, it's. I mean, the exciting thing I think is that, as far as the specific project we're talking about, the British government got together with the British Air Force got together with the American Air Force, and they've also talked to the Canadians and the Europeans, and so we are going to be launching a satellite for the U.S. Air Force from Guam in the next few months, and we're going to be launching a satellite for the UK Air Force from Cornwall in England, and that's the exciting thing. We can launch 3,000 miles apart. We can go into any orbit anywhere in the world, which is not possible for land-based launches. So, it's so exciting.
So I think we have time for one more. I think I'm on this side.
Yes, Vago Muradian from Defense and Aerospace Report with conference off to a tremendous start. Sir Richard, it's an honor seeing you again. I remember interviewing you many years ago at Farnborough. Can you talk to us a little bit about the nature and your thoughts on how to drive innovation? Few people have started as many things as you have, aside, of course, from having been pulled out of the water several times. It was always in the drive to achieve something that hadn't been achieved. As the military looks to figure out new and smarter ways of doing things, what do you think are the core elements of how to think about innovation and then execute it?
So most things that Virgin has done have come out of sort of frustration. I told the story about why we started Virgin Atlantic, but that applies to most things we've done. Like here in America, the train business, by and large, disappeared many years ago. The train tracks were covered over by roads, and it's our belief that we can actually bring really exciting high-speed rail back to America and other places in the world, so we've been developing something called Virgin Hyperloop, which are trains that could go up to 1,000 miles an hour in a vacuum, in a tube, floating on magnetic vacuum. And so what we'll do is we believe that's possible. We'll invest in one or two engineers. We'll maybe on this case we built a small track outside Las Vegas, we gave it a go, and then so I think a lot of these things are just trying things and not being afraid of failure, and occasionally falling flat in your face. You need to be working for a company where the people above you, do not jump down your throat if you do fail. I mean, if you don't, you've got to have a company's got to be able to accept failure as well as accept great things. But if you try 10 ways of fixing something, one of those 10 quite likely to succeed. I don't know if we've got time. Should we just show the Virgin Hyperloop video?
Yeah, yeah.
Going up to Devloop for the first time was seeing just unbridled opportunity. You saw the desert completely bare, and you saw in your head, in your mind's eye, what we were going to put there. I felt really confident because I have a tremendous confidence in the people that I work with and the people on the team that I helped build.
You've got teams from mechanical design, teams from computer engineering, and people who've worked on massive motor systems, massive rocket ships, and aerospace, aerodynamic engineering.
This thing that started as a sketch and an idea and then lived on this computer is now real, and it's welded and it's bolted and you can put your hands on it. And then we actually assemble all the parts onto it and send it out to Cype, and you flip the power switch and it just comes to life. That's really the engineering dream, to get to see that whole process through.
We broke all Hyperloop speed records. And to think we did all this in 10 months. We proved to the whole world that we can build safely, quickly, efficiently, and prove the technology works. This is just the beginning.
This company, like others in the Virgin family, has insatiable curiosity and the grit to get it done.
I can't wait to see what we do next as a team.
So one of the things that Sir Richard told me is that you actually have to have a lot of fun doing this, that's half the battle of innovation. And I know that he has a lot of fun on April Fool's Day. And I'd like to maybe perhaps end with a lighter note. April Fools, tell us about April Fools.
Yeah, April Fool's Day. I love pulling people's legs, and then occasionally they pull my leg back. And one of every April Fool we come up with something quite fun. But anyway, one year we built a spaceship, and basically it was a UFO, as you do, and we flew the UFO over London, and the radio stations got on alert. The army were called out. 4 police forces were called out. Yeah, that's the UFO up in the sky early morning, about 4:30 in the morning, and it had strobe lights, and it just looked exactly like you'd imagine a UFO would look like. Went down the motorway. Every single car stopped. Everybody got out of the car. The whole motorway came to a grinding halt. And then we realized we were heading for Gatwick Airport, which wasn't a very good idea. So we managed to land in a foggy field just outside Gatwick. The army surrounded the field. The police surrounded the field. We were looking out of a little hole in the UFO, and we saw this English bobby with a truncheon walking towards us. And I must admit, I smiled, thinking, this is the first thing that somebody from outer space is going to see, as an English policeman with a truncheon. Anyway, we had this door that just like an ET, it opened very slowly, and we pumped all this dry ice inside the person that ran our record company in America happened to be about this height, and so we had an ET outfit on him, and he walked down the steps very slowly, and this policeman just turned and ran. And anyway, there he is. So it was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Sir Richard, we puzzled about what can you give a multi-billionaire that he doesn't already have, and we came up with our famous Air Force Association socks. As you'll find here in the Defense Department, at least one major buyer for the Air Force really loves his socks. So let me I hope they fit. Perfect.
I'll put the other one on when I get out.
Thank you.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.